Hey folks, around 9 months ago when I had completed the review of the Rygen-Tech Sticks, I decided to contact them regarding source from one of their recently discontinued Triton AIOs. I was told to wait, as something was in development that would greatly surpass it. But let's get one thing out of the way first. I'm from Scotland, that means it's cold, often Baltic, and my home office, well after the birth of my daughter, being relocated to the garage, I can quite honestly say that I've never actually felt, even running at 3.6 plus GHz on the Ryzen 7 system, that it really needs water cooling. I mean, the Wraith Spire cooler even does a decent enough job at higher frequencies. But need and want are completely different animals, and while I didn't think I needed an AIO, after seeing the original concept images from Rygen-Tech for the Orcus 240, I certainly wanted it. So I waited, was teased occasionally by the cheeky development pics, and drooled over the engineering samples at Computex 2017, and then I waited some more. But all of my waiting has finally paid off though, as Rygen-Tech has kindly sent me over one of their new Orcus 240 AIOs. But after all this time, was it worth the wait? I mean, it certainly wouldn't be the first time I've waited for something and been disappointed. Well, at an MSRP of £99 for the RGB version, or under £80 if you use your own fans and go for the Orcus Core, I think it's time to check it out. From the outset, we've got some nice packaging, clear pictures, and no hint of the low price. Inside you get the AIO assembly, two RGB 120mm fans, the new Rygen-Tech RGB hub and controller, and some replacement fluid in case you ever need to top up, along with the assorted bag of fittings which fits all mainstream platforms at release. The Orcus comes with a 240mm dual design radiator, which features an integrated reservoir and an external pump, by reducing the total height of the radiator unit to 120mm by 27mm by 272. What we've got here is an AIO solution that's suitable for builds where space is at a premium, something that would probably fit perfectly in their Sticks case for example. If you're not familiar with AIOs, the base of the heatsink dissipates heat from the CPU towards the radiator, where the liquid coolant flows through, in this case 12 channels of fins, and ensures continuous heat transfer. The RGB fans included, they ramp up to a maximum speed of 1800 RPM and expel that heat from the radiator and out your case, but under normal gaming use, I found that the fans kept everything in check at a very quiet 870-ish RPM, which is less than 10% above their minimum rated speed. Rygen-Tech also includes a sachet of thermal paste and a spatula to spread, meaning that all you need to get started comes in the box. So what makes this Orcus AIO different from the usual go-to AIO solutions then? Well, the two things that stood out to me when first hooking it up was first and foremost that CPU block. Now, being an engineer by day, I simply love mechanical things, and that flow meter to me looks absolutely fantastic. The Rygen-Tech blurb calls it the reservoir or heart, and I think that the heart is a great way to describe it. When the PC is off, the flow meter is still, you can still see it through the window, but it's not moving. Power on and the RGB bursts into life, followed by a gradual spooling up of the flow indicator as the pump starts shifting water through the system. It's great to have a physical indicator like this built in, and it gives you the peace of mind that your pump is doing what it should be. Speaking of the pump, that's I guess the second standout point. Even though the block is large due to accommodating that mechanical flow indicator, the pump itself is not housed within the CPU block. Instead, it's located separately on the piping just before entry into the radiator. Now, I did question Rygen-Tech as to why they decided to go down this pretty unusual route with the pump, and the main reason for it was to simply reduce stress on the CPU block. And all in all, it's a unique solution, and if that facilitates great design choices like that mechanical flow indicator, then I'm all for it, especially when it's as silent as it is. So I guess it's probably a good job that we've got a flow indicator here, as I would have been hard pressed to tell if the pump was actually doing its job when the case was closed. Compared to the older Triton cooler, gone are the transparent tubes, which have been replaced by nice high quality braided tubes. A little less colour for sure, but the inclusion of RGB elements in this AIO system, it means you can still choose your colours. Another plus to having this braided solution is that it eliminates evaporation through the tubing by around 80% according to the material specs, which has got to mean, in theory at least, that you're going to need to top up this AIO less frequently than with the original transparent tubes that would have been on the Triton cooler. A nice point when a change which could be visually subjective offers up a tangible and objective improvement. Now, if you've watched my video on the Aura RGB fans, again from Rygen-Tech, you'll know that they came with a proprietary connector and fan hub, hub. Initially I thought it was going to be the same case here with the Orcus, but it's not the case. With the Orcus RGB you do get a hub, but it's just simply standard RGB headers and it can be synced up to the motherboard. In my build here, I've actually daisy chained the hub onto the end of two RGB light strips and it all works absolutely flawlessly with my ASUS Aura software on my Strix B350-F motherboard. The fans are also standard PWM affairs and just plug straight into the motherboard. Now Raijin Tech hasn't forgotten about those of you who don't have dedicated RGB headers on your motherboard, and I know there's going to be a lot of you, as the hub can be used with an included remote with the flick of a switch. So you're going to be sorted even on an older motherboard if you want to add a little bit of RGB flair to your case. Add that to the fact that you can link up to 8 RGB fans to the hub, it means it's going to be very easy for anyone with an RGB enabled motherboard or otherwise to get their fill of colour changing goodness. Maintenance of the Orcus, it looks easy enough too, with there being a fill port on the CPU block and an included bottle of fluid to use if and when required. Now if I ever do need to top up the fluid, I'll be sure to report back on the process, but it should be a good while down the line before that's required. So what about installation and performance? Well, installation, it was a breeze. Like I've mentioned before, I've never actually used an AIO prior to this, and the instructions included were clear and concise enough to install without hassle. That being said, there were two small points that I wanted to add on this review. On my ROG Strix motherboard, the AIO pump header is located at the far left hand side, and as you would expect, the PWM cable for the pump is located, funnily enough, on the pump. This combo, along with the length of the cable, meant that on my motherboard the pump had to be orientated to the left hand side of the radiator, necessitating the cheeky loop that you see here. Now I did contact Raijin Tech about the suitability of the loop being in this configuration and was told that there was no issues at all, and I've certainly not seen any degradation in performance with a tight loop like this. So brownie points for being so flexible, but perhaps in future revisions a longer cable or even a 99p eBay extension included in the box would be a nice mitigation for those of us with awkwardly positioned AIO pump headers. Other than that, the only other thing to note was the use of a Molex connector on the RGB hub. Now this is absolutely not an issue at all, but it did necessitate me hooking up my Molex cable to the modular PSU since I've never really had any real reason to have it included in my system previously. But really, that's just me trying to be picky, and it's a pretty standard method across most manufacturers' hubs. But on the whole, installation, it was really easy, and when everything's installed, it does look absolutely fantastic. Now on to performance. Like I've said, I live in Scotland, and I never thought I would see much benefit from going from an already very good AMD Wraith cooler to an AIO. But I was certainly wrong in this regard. To simulate typical gaming usage, I decided to play through Rise of the Tomb Raider maxed out in ultrawide with an MSI Gaming X RX 580 8GB. And with the stock air cooling, we were seeing CPU temperatures around 48 to 50 degrees and GPU temperatures hovering around 65 to 70 degrees depending on the section of the game. Which on the whole is pretty good, even though the fans did get noticeably loud after a couple hours of play. Going back and repeating the same 2 hour or so section with the Orcus installed, it cooled things down no end. The CPU temperatures dropped by over 10 degrees, hovering in the 30s while gaming, and the heat generated by the CPUs being directly pushed out of the case actually helped the GPU stay cooler for longer periods of time. Now using the same fan curve on the GPU, the temperatures dropped on average by over 5 degrees, and that was coupled to the fact that with this setup I decided to set the fans at a much quieter silent profile, something that I was never 100% comfortable doing with a stock cooling solution. Overclocking the Ryzen 7 to just under 4GHz, it proved to be no problem for the Orcus either, keeping everything cool in game and returning temperatures very similar to what was seen with the stock cooler at stock speeds. Now cranking the fan speeds up dropped the CPU temperatures even further, showing that for those with overclocking fantasies but have only got room for a small AIO, then they're going to be more than covered with this Orcus 240. So in a nutshell, that's the Orcus AIO. I'm really glad that I waited for it. The RGB fans look absolutely great, it cools fantastically well while being dead quiet, and is priced unbelievably aggressively for the quality of kit that you get. And of course there's a flow meter. I'm sorry to harp on about it again, but I absolutely love it. You can keep your boring squares or circles with pulsating branding. That little flow wheel, it's so simple and so clean that it's going to look great even after the trend of RGB lighting is long gone. The only problem for me now is it's made me want to fork out some more of those Iris 120mm fans. But that's it for me folks, a big thanks to Raijin Tech for letting me take a look at this Orcus AIO. I've no doubt they're onto a winner here, but I want to know what you think of it. Is it that big a step up from their older Triton AIOs, and are the unique features and design cues enough to make you think twice about following the herd to the more expensive and more basic offerings offered up by other vendors? If you want to check out where to buy the Orcus here in the UK, you can check out the link in the description, and as always, I'll see you in the comment section down below, and in the next video. I'm just going to wait to get mesmerised again by that spinning float wheel.